And a warm welcome to those of you who joined us for this session. Well, I believe that in our country, we're very good at respecting a debut. We always know how to give our love and show our love to someone who's trying something for the first time. I think over the years, this is a little injustice to this amazing product that has been there. And now let's open our eyes wide and see what is it that makes it so very different. Telling us everything about this product in particular is someone who has all the best knowledge. So she's right here joining us today with a lovely smile. Let's hear it for Scarlett Clauss, the Vice Director of Osmium Institute Germany and Managing Director of Oslery. She is responsible for the international market, introduction of crystalline osmium and its application in high jewelry and luxury worldwide, working at the intersection of science, certification, luxury and design. Ladies and gentlemen, Scarlett Clauss.
So a warm welcome also from me. Thank you so much for coming, guys. This is our first approach to the Indian market. We're super excited, and I'd say I'm going to jump right into it. We have some jewelry pieces on display in a little bit, and we'll also have my colleague Sheila walking around handing you an osmium piece so you can actually touch the rarest precious metal as well. I'm going to start at the basics because this is, as I said, our first approach to the Indian market. So we all know the periodic table, and we all know a couple of the precious metals. We know gold and silver, palladium and platinum, rhodium, iridium, and if you were good in physics class, ruthenium and osmium. And osmium down here is number 76 in the periodic table, and it's the element that we will be talking about today. So most of the time people ask me, has this been recently discovered? Is this something new? And I have to tell you, it is not something new. It was actually already, discovered in 1804. So over 200 years ago, or for 200 years, we've been aware of this precious metal. But there it was discovered in its raw form, which is so-called osmium sponge, and you cannot use it. And then in 1906, Osram, standing for osmium wolfram, which is the German word for tungsten, was using it in their light bulbs. So there was a first industrial application. But still, there was no real interest in the material because it looked like gray bluish powder, it is hazardous to health, and there was no real use case. So why are we talking about a precious metal that doesn't look pretty? Well, it changed in 2014 when we became able to crystallize osmium, and we will be talking about the crystalline version of this material today. First, real quick, the most important country in the osmium business is probably Switzerland. I actually heard it's a very popular destination with Indians, so it comes from a very beautiful country. In Switzerland, the crystallization is happening, and in Germany, which is where I'm coming from, is where the cutting and the certification process is happening. So these two countries are kind of the hub. And let's hope we can soon add the Indian flag as the most important market. Just a few basic facts about osmium before we're going to jump into the crystalline part of it and the jewelry part of it, because it's important to understand the material itself. So when we talk about density, osmium is the densest element on the periodic table. It has 22.61 gram per cubic centimeter. This is kind of hard for a lot of people to grasp, so I'm taking something which is known to be very heavy. To put it into a comparison, this is lead. Lead only has half the density of osmium, meaning osmium is very, very heavy. To put it even more into perspective, something that most of us have held in their hand more or less successful over the last couple of years, a typical bowling ball will have the density of 1.33 grams per cubic centimeter, which means a bowling ball made out of crystalline osmium would not only weigh 122 kilograms and hence would be a little bit difficult to throw, but also in the crystalline form would be worth over 300 million US dollars. I have no idea how that converts to Indian rupiah, but it also would be a very, very big number and consists of luck, and I still don't really grasp the concept of that. Another really important fact about it is osmium's rarity. So when we talk about rarity, it does not get rarer than osmium. We have a couple of gemstones which are considered to be very rare, of course, especially if they come from a very specific mine. But with osmium, the rarity is unmatched. So I'm from Germany, I'm from Berlin, which is why you see the Brandenburg Gate. Next to it, you see the gold that has already been mined. There's way much more in the planet. And then we see down there the osmium cube that is expected to be in the entire Earth's crust. And most of that cannot even be mined. So we see it down here. It's many thousand times rarer than gold, but more importantly, it's also right now 17 times the price of gold. So we are actually thinking of less than 500 kilograms that will ever be available of this precious material. We're not talking in annual production, we're talking ever. And this is the rarity that is unmatched to anything else. There are two markets when it comes to osmium. One is the tangible asset investment market. I'm from Germany. We don't wear expensive jewelry. I always say we drive expensive cars, we drink very good beer, but we don't wear expensive jewelry. Our money goes to tangible asset investment and stocks, potentially Bitcoin if you're really fancy. So there's a huge tangible asset investment market in Germany around this material. And this is due to two reasons. The first one is the osmium Big Bang. So we already learned osmium is a super rare material. At some point, it will run out. And for the raw material, this has actually already happened, because for over 1.5 years, we have not been able to acquire more osmium. Osmium from ethical sources, that is. And this availability until May 2024 made it very interesting, but since now the product ran out, all that we have, we're now crystallizing, or it's used in technical applications, and it becomes less and less. This is something that our American market mainly, they love their fancy words, refers to as the osmium Big Bang. And then the second thing is the osmium thin out, because the osmium that is being used as investment pieces or as tangible asset investment are being cut, and then they're going into jewelry, and once they're into jewelry or into any industrial applications, they disappear from the market forever. So we actually have a thinning out from the investment market to the jewelry or application market, and osmium may be, depending on the trending of the material, and if now markets like India, for example, are entering the game, it may be the first commodity that actually runs out. So this is how osmium usually looks like when you extract it from platinum. Not very pretty. It's also highly toxic in this state. So in this state, you wouldn't want to do anything with it. There is a few applications for it, industrial-wise, but the main use case is the crystallization. And in the crystalline form, you probably guessed it, it's completely safe to wear and to handle. So I have one, large osmium disc here. This piece is valued at $250,000 US, so 250,000 US dollars, and you get the chance to hold it in your hand. So usually when I do the presentation on investment conferences, people are very excited. You guys deal in gemstones, so you're used to big values, but please be careful. No bending it, just taking it in your hand, and my colleague Sheila will actually hand it to all of you. When you take it, you will be able to feel the density. It is really heavy, much heavier than you would expect. So what makes osmium so interesting? It has the highest compression modulus of all the elements. It shields against gamma radiation. It's a superconductor at lower temperatures. There are so many use cases. This material is absolutely incredible when you look at its chemical and physical properties. The main reason why it is not used more is the last point here on that slide. It is also the rarest stable, meaning non-radioactive element on Earth. And this limits all the potential industrial applications. I say all, actually about a year ago, research popped up in the United States that osmium may be a game changer in the second generation of quantum computing chips. So hypothetically, that's something interesting that will pop up. That research is in its baby shoes. Mainly right now, we're always talking about the crystalline form, which has the highest value density of all the materials. So in the palm of your hand, you can hold a Lamborghini. I'm not sure if that's the most expensive car I can think of. So this is how it looks in its crystallized shape. This is also what Sheila will be handing you in a bit. And this is how the crystalline structure looks when you enlarge it. So this is a high-resolution scan that we took in Germany with our Kions microscopes. Kions is the absolute market leader in that regard. And when you have a look at this crystalline structure, you see that it has all sorts of different angles. It has all sorts of different crystals with valleys and mountains, if you will. And it's absolutely unique. It's like a human fingerprint, just 10,000 times as precise. So imagine that when you enter a new country, you're identified by your fingertips. Well, this is 10,000 times the precision in identification. It's impossible to counterfeit osmium in the crystallized form. And that's probably where the main value comes from. This is a height profile, a 3D scan that we are shooting from the side. And every single piece of osmium, the one that Sheila is handing around is very large, but we also have small ones, the ones I'm wearing in my jewelry. Every single piece of osmium is registered, is entered into the database, and is traceable. So if I lost this ring somewhere here and it would turn up anywhere in the world, immediately it could be traced back to me. And that makes it very interesting because it literally becomes unforgeable. So how do we do that? In the Osmium World Database, we give every piece a so-called OIC, which is an Osmium Identification Code. Very fancy name. Basically, it starts with a customs designation, and then it has an 8-digit alphanumerical code following, which is specific to this single piece. And when we give, by the way, we set this up with the US Customs and Border Protection rulings. Took us 3 years because we had to start explaining to the Americans that osmium actually is a precious metal, which they didn't believe at first. Thankfully, most of the world is copying from the United States, so from then on, it went a lot easier. India was tough, not gonna lie, but now we can also successfully import to India. And this crystallization is linked to its osmium identification code because we use those Kions microscopes in Germany. So this is the main job of the company and the institute that I am working for. And down here, you can hardly see it, but there's a small little gecko lizard, and we can enlarge these pictures so much that we can identify the crystal structure. So what does it mean? Of course it means if someone gives us a crystalline osmium piece, we're able to find out which one it is. But it gets a lot better, because we do not need, or you don't need us, that sounds stupid when I say it, but you will know what I mean in a second. So this is a small osmium violin. This piece is 2 centimeters, roughly, probably 3 centimeters in length. This is the scan that we have in the Osmium World Database. Now, advertising a little bit for iPhone. I took this photo with an iPhone 15 Pro and a small camera attachment. You can buy those on Amazon. They're like 25 bucks. This is the photo that I took of the tip of that violin. And now if we enlarge that scan, what you can see here are the exact same crystals, even with the naked eye. So for example, look at this crystal. You will see the same crystalline structure here. Or that one down here, you can see there. So what does that mean? It doesn't just mean that we can identify every single piece in the lab. No, the end customer themselves can authenticate their piece. And this is what makes it so truly interesting in nowadays world, because with 3D printing, with AI generating, we are not sure what is real, what is fake. No one can tell anymore what is true, what is false. With osmium, you can authenticate your piece. You can put a single tiny little piece of osmium in your jewelry, and no one will ever be able to replicate it. If you give the customer the code, the customer themselves can take a photo and can compare it with the naked eye, authenticate their piece. And this is the real value it gives to luxury. We're working with a couple luxury brands. I don't know if you guys are watch fans. Hublot, Elise Nardin, Chapek. Now we're talking, think of the 10 biggest jewelry brands in the world. We're talking to 2 of them. Unfortunately, it's an NDA, so I can't tell you which ones, but hopefully we'll see a lot of movement in the upcoming years. The main reason why they are now approaching us is twofold. Some are looking for an addition to diamonds, because diamonds don't work like they used to for some brands. The other one is even more important. One piece of osmium, it will always be unique. You will always be able to tell it's a true watch from Hublot, or it's a true watch from etc. You don't have the problem with forgeability anymore. So we covered the asset part, we covered the watches part. Let's come to the one that's probably the most important one today. Just real quick, tangible asset looks like this. This is one of the largest discs that Sheila is also showing around. This is about as big as it gets. We can't go larger than 10 centimeters due to scientific reasons I do not understand, but it's where the limits of physics are. And then it gets smaller. You can buy discs, bars, various shapes. Now we also have a couple of producers. This is from the United States. For example, this is a pure block of silver. This is a pure block of gold. And they use the osmium pieces inside as eyes, which you could also take apart, and you again have the value of just the gold, just the osmium. Then we have minted coins, collector's editions, you name it. So a lot of people using it there. And then with the watches, I already mentioned the Hublot watch and the Ulysse Nardin watch. Those are probably the biggest ones that people know. So here we have the two Hublot watches. Here we have the Ulysse Nardin. They actually only created an 18 pieces limited edition, which was sold out before it actually entered the market. Really cool. We just know from one where it is. This is valued at $250,000 as well. And then very important here, we unfortunately, and I'm going to say not yet, have a collaboration with Rolex. Hopefully that's going to come. What this here is a private customer that came in and said, I want to exchange my Rolex, I think it's a Submariner, yeah, and I want to elevate it. I want to put it on the next level, so I want to have osmium inside of it. We ourselves don't do that. We hand it to watchmakers who are specialized in these cases, and they can do it. Of course, then it loses its certificate. But I always include this in my presentations, because if one of you has connections to Rolex, I'm expecting you to make the connection. But coming to the most important part, the jewelry. So with jewelry, we started in 2020. So 2020 was the first years that we actually had the first piece created. In January of 2020, we launched Osmium Jewelry. Now, I think everyone here knows that January of 2020 was a shit time to launch anything. So Osmium Jewelry really started to get a foothold, I would say, about 2 or 3 years ago. So it's rather new. But in theory, the first pieces turned up 2020. And this one here, we also have exhibited here. Miriam Sosailos, she's a UK designer. She was the first one who ever made a super high-end piece, which also won a couple of awards. Then we have the My City ring from Roberto Matai from Sydney. It's actually Sydney's skyline. It also has osmium incorporated. It's very heavy. If you wear it, you're going to be tilted, but it's a beautiful piece. And then we have Alessio Boschi, a designer from Thailand. He's Italian, but he's a designer from Thailand. And he's created the icicle earrings. So the very, very first jewelry pieces were actually super high-end, super haute couture. The jewelers or designers who say, I'm very at the front of everything, they were the first ones to create some jewelry pieces. And then it went further. So these are, for example, the inside-out hoops by Tanya Chan. I included those here because I said earlier, osmium always needs to be inserted flat, right? When you look at this here, of course, you can create the illusion of a bend material with sequencing it, like using smaller pieces, like you would a memoire ring, or like you would a tennis bracelet. Those are from Hong Kong, by the way. So coming to the next part, which is the Osma-V. Osmium is a precious metal. Most people are confused. They think a precious metal, I'm going to need 5 grams to create a ring, or even more. Indians tend to have very big jewels, so probably in India even more. That's not the case. With osmium, you only need fractions of a gram. We're actually now thinking of switching the unit to carat, because you use it like an inlay or like a stone. So this can either be a solitaire. By the way, we just had an amazing interview with a Solitaire magazine. Thank you very much again for that. You can read it in the next edition. And you can also use it as a substitute for a pavé, a diamond carpet. The term Osma-V has started to spread throughout Germany and Austria, Switzerland. So we're including it everywhere we go now because we actually like the ring of it. So when people first see osmium jewelry, they think it's a pavé. They think it's a diamond carpet. However, if you look a little bit closer, you will see that that's not the case. So first of all, we have one solid piece, but also we can go into super steep, pointy angles, or we can have very round and soft curves. And here we are actually limited with a pavé because we're setting single stones, right? With osmium, you can cut any shape you want. Now you may look at the right piece and think, that's a Maserati. It's a trident officially because we do not have the rights to cut the Maserati logo. This was a private individual piece requested by the Maserati club owner of Austria who wanted to have it as a keychain. So we cut him a trident and not a Maserati logo. But in general, this down here, for example, is the logo of a health brand. Here in the elephant, you can again see like every single piece here, or this is a single piece, and you can cut it into any shape you want. So this is another point that really elevates design, because you can have a beautiful sparkling surface without any compromises. It gets more extravagant the further we go in this presentation. These are the Osmium headphones. You may think, who needs them? I don't really know, probably no one, but I mean, they're there and they're beautiful. So there's over-ears, there's in-ears. This is a company, Ultrason AG, they're from Germany. They give lifelong guarantees, and we're now actually looking at a collaboration with a couple of very big DJs who want to wear them on stage. So hopefully, potentially, next Tomorrowland. I'm not sure if Tomorrowland is a big thing in India as well. In Europe, it's huge. There we go. Okay, Tomorrowland. Hopefully, next Tomorrowland, you may see Osmium on stage. We'll see. We're working on it. Going even one step further is the Osmium violin. The Osmium violin is an absolute lighthouse project. It's exceptional. It features over 541 pieces of crystalline osmium next to diamonds, rubies, sapphires, emeralds, you name it. Took over 3 years to build by one of the most renowned violin makers in the world, Edgar Roos. He's Austrian. And it's the world's most expensive new violin. It's auctioned off. The starting price was at 4 million euros. I'm allowed to take bids, so if anyone's interested and has some pocket money to spend, you can approach me. I was also had the honor of holding it and traveling it with a couple of times when I traveled to the United States. United Airways lost it for 24 hours. It was very stressful. They found it again. In hindsight, bad, because otherwise it would have been sold because the insurance would have been paying for it. But anyways, it's a beautiful masterpiece. It also sounds magnificent. It was played in a couple of philharmonias. So if you guys ever see it pop up somewhere on a schedule, you should really try to catch it. And now coming to the last part of the presentation, which is going to be a little bit longer, but it's going to take a few of the questions, I guess, away. And then afterwards, we're going to have an FAQ, and you're very welcome to ask anything that pops to mind. So how do we actually work with Osmium? Well, it's rather easy, but let me walk you through a couple of important things. First of all, we already covered that, but I can't repeat it often enough because it still confuses people. Osmium is an inlay. You don't use it like a material or like a metal. You use it like an inlay. So often when I show people like my jewelry, I love gold. Probably I'm an Indian somewhere deep down. I love gold. And people will look at my jewelry and they will ask, oh, it looks like gold. I'm like, no, it's the sparkly thing inside of it. And they say, oh, I thought this was diamonds. So osmium is an inlay. It's not the carrier material. It is always cut and set flat. So even when there is the illusion of like a bent surface, it's always inserted flat, and you have the carrier material, which is balancing it out. Again, of course, if you sequence it, you can create the illusion of a round bend. Comparing it to diamonds, just like on a scale of a scientific scale, I personally love the combination, but it's different because osmium reflects the light, a diamond refracts the light. So a diamond breaks the light, meaning the light that goes in doesn't come completely back to the observer's eyes. With osmium, it's different. Osmium is a material that 100% reflects the light that goes in, or it doesn't even go in, it bounces off. And that's why it sparkles even more than a diamond. Now, that's not better or worse, because a diamond with a refraction has the beautiful color spectrum. We don't have that with osmium. But it means you see osmium further than diamonds. So if a woman came through that door over there, and one over there, one's wearing osmium, one's wearing diamonds, you see the one wearing osmium first. It actually is visible up to 30 meters in sunlight when the sunlight hits it directly. Sparkle levels, important point. A lot of people, especially when they come from the gemstone industry, ask me, how is it graded? Like, which sort of grades do we have? Color, cut, carat, I mean, you name it, the 4 Cs. Osmium quality is always the same. We always have a 9 purity. 99.9999999, etc. %. So you don't cipher anything there, always the same quality. However, we have different sparkle levels. And the sparkle levels are not quality, they are how thick the piece is. The thicker the piece, the larger the single crystals. The larger the single crystals, the larger the mirror that reflects the light back into your eye. So you actually have more sparkle, the thicker the piece. We see that down here. This is a sparkle 1, which is very fine in its granules, it's not very rough. You could touch over it and it's hardly any texture. And we have a sparkle 4 down there, which is a lot rougher. The thickness always ranges between 0.2 and 1.4 millimeters. Also important just in terms of how much space you can plan in your jewelry for it. So again, no better or worse with the sparkle. A lot of the watch industries, they don't have that much space, so they will go for a smaller or thinner surface. Or a lot of men's jewelry doesn't tend to go all for the bling, but more for the material itself. Whereas the big colliers, they always go for the large sparkle. So you just gotta think of what you want to use. Most commonly used in jewelry are sparkle 3 to 4. We're getting a really big crowd. I love it. Setting osmium, another important part. So we can do the normal setting. We can do prong setting, which you can see over here, and we can do bezel setting, which you can see over here. So just like any other gemstone. You can also glue it. I personally am not a huge fan of gluing because I think a material that's so pricey and worthy shouldn't just be glued. But in theory, you can use any sort of adhesive that you usually use in jewelry production, also for osmium. And we can also laser spot weld it. So that's another thing that you can do. You can weld another material onto osmium and with that actually grab a hold of the osmium. However, when you expose it to heat, you have to take some precautions. We'll cover that in the next slide after this one. And then what I said earlier, the customized shapes and cutting. So when you get a piece of osmium, you don't cut it yourself. There's no one who gets a piece and then cuts it themselves and uses that inlay. You order the inlay that you want to have, already made ready for you. We have a lot of standardized forms which cover probably about 80% of the market, but you can, of course, also have any shape cut that you want. So we can even do holes. Obviously, if you have a watch dial, you have to put the watch hand somewhere. We can create the most beautiful and elaborate logos if you want, but it is very expensive because if you have such a piece, we need to do calculations, we need to set the machines, we need to actually set up the database entry. So it only makes sense for really elaborate, customized pieces where a customer says, I want to have something and I don't mind the costs, or for serious. So if you have a piece produced multiple times, it gets a shockingly amount cheaper because a lot of the costs we only have once. Oh, and how it works is you send us a CAD file or a technical drawing, which we will convert to a CAD file. We also learned something very interesting about a person over there who has an app, and there you can put all the information in that you want to have. It creates CAD files, it creates even 3D models, renderings, so very, very interesting. Coming to the don'ts, so osmium parts shouldn't touch each other to avoid mechanical stress, so if you can avoid that, that's great. Osmium is very abrasion resistant, but if you have the crystals rubbing off against each other, at the edges you can break a crystal off. So you should always protect the edges, and you shouldn't go too thin with the bar width. So if you cut a logo and you go, we communicate 1.5 to be sure, you can actually go down to 1 millimeter. It just gets very, very filigrane and very easy to snap off or break. As soon as it's set into jewelry, it's not a problem anymore, but while setting and putting pressure on it, it can actually break. So you want to be careful there. We already covered the edges. You shouldn't remove it too often back and forth, especially if it's laser spot weld. Severe bending can cause the crystallizing structure to break. So you will never be able to break a single crystal, but you can break the crystals apart from each other if you go like this for a while. So just don't do it. And when you do subsequent processing, either rhodium plating or gold plating, it's possible, but it changes the crystalline structure, and we won't be able to identify it anymore. And even though that may look pretty, it defeats the entire idea of crystalline osmium being traceable. So just don't do it. And then the last one, the high heat, which I already mentioned. So when you look up osmium here in India, the market is not yet saturated at all. Most people have never heard of it, which will probably lead to you finding information online that osmium is toxic. And yes, it is. I already said that. The raw material is toxic. The crystalline form is not yet that popular and known. Of course, there's extensive studies on its safety. The big brands who already used it did their own studies, of course. But still, so the raw material is toxic. In the crystalline form, it's perfectly safe, unless you heat it up above 400 degrees Celsius. We communicate 400, we actually only measured it from 600 degrees onwards. It may form osmium tetroxide again. If you breathe it in, you're not going to drop dead immediately, but it's going to harm your lungs. So what you want to do is you want to work under a fume head or under inert protective gas, and then you're fine. Also, by the way, fun fact, I don't know if anyone speaks Greek here. Osmium comes from the Greek word osme, which means as much as reek or smell. And that is because raw osmium and osmium tetroxide smells like garlic and like onions. It smells like a kebab store. So when you smell the kebab and you don't see the kebab, open the window, go out, get a real kebab, come back, keep working. Yes, up to temperatures of 400 degrees, completely safe, no problem whatsoever. So as long as you just do prong setting, bezel setting, gluing, whatever, you can put any glue on it you want, doesn't matter. You're perfectly fine. The probably better part is the do's. So what is able? Well, you can basically combine it with any other material. You finally have an innovation that you can work with, because the jewelry industry has been craving innovation for years. However, we didn't really have that much innovation. Of course, we've had new stones pop up every now and then, new cuts that you could do, but a new precious metal entering the market is kind of a big deal. And also, it's the last one entering the market. There's 8, there won't be another one. If you look at the periodic table, that's not me saying it, that's science saying it. So you don't want to miss out on that one. Curves in 3D are possible. As I said, we can cut any inlays. Many of the classic inlays are ready to order, so you can just order it. It'll be with you. If it's already in India, we have a stock here. It will be with you in, I don't know how long Indian shipping takes, like 3 or 4 days, I guess, probably less. If it comes from Germany and if it's a special cut, we can always get it to you within a month. We can even produce it faster if needed. Yes, and then the probably most important thing for everyone who's processing, it is very easy. We're not talking rocket science. We do have extensive training materials. We have an academy. We have processing guidelines. All of that can be read through, but in theory, if you know how to work with stones, you will also know how to work with osmium. If we give you a 15 to 20-minute introduction, you're all set. And then coming to the last 2 slides, I think. So this here is a beautiful collier. I always put it there to brag, because I was the one designing it. It was one of the first pieces that was ever created. And here you can see that we have, I think it's like 10 single inlays within this jewelry piece. Now, 10 OICs is probably still something that you can hand a customer, right? You can give them a paper, it has 10 codes, fine. But we also have a collier that features over 180 single individual pieces. Meaning, if you were to give this to a customer, it would kind of be like one of those papyrus rolls that like rolls on and on because it's so many codes. Another problem was that if you look up a code, you will see the price of the piece. So the people who are working in the industry, once we branched into jewelry, told us, that's a no-go, because the customer will see my osmium piece costs 300 euros. Why does my ring suddenly cost 1,000 euros? So for both of these problems, we have found one single solution, which is called the X code. And what the X code is a superior code. Basically, it summarizes all the single codes. You can still call up the certification, the scans, all of these things, but it summarizes all of these codes together. It can be done by anyone who's working with osmium, very easy. You can summarize it. You can even upload pictures of the jewelry piece if you want. Most importantly, the single prices disappear. They are not visible anymore, and you can give a price to the actual jewelry piece. You don't have to. But this will allow you to keep your margins as you're used to them. We don't influence any sort of the end pricing. That's up to you anyways. But it will allow you to have your normal communication with the customers, still give them the codes without them knowing every single price point. And basically how it works is every piece has an OIC, which is the Osmium Identification Code, and an OCC, which is an Owner Change Code. When you purchase the osmium, it's registered in your name. You get an OCC, an Owner Change Code, Once you sell your piece, you put it in an X code, you inherit it, you gift it away, you use your OCC, you can put a new owner into the database yourself, your OCC goes invalid, the new owner gets 1 cent via email. So we're not needed, you can do it completely on your own. I already mentioned it, we have processing guidelines. The full version is, I think, about 80 pages long. We have a 2-page summary. Why do we need 80 pages? Well, we're also working with the United States, and there you have to start by telling people to not shove it up their nose. So it covers a lot of things that are probably most people are aware of. The summary is, as I said, 2.5 pages long, and it contains all you need. We also have trainings. If it's a larger group of people, we can have on-site trainings, either with us or with the processing company. And we also have a jewelry academy online where people can go. All of this is free of charge. We want people to learn about it, to be educated, which covers everything from how you should design it to what do you need to be aware of, what can you do, what can't you do. Right now it's only in German and English. I mean, that covers the Indian market, thankfully, but we're also thinking of translating it into multiple languages now that it's 2 clicks on the computer with AI. And then coming to, I think this is the last point, we ourselves, as I said, we don't produce any jewelry. We are supplying the material. But of course, we need jewelry to advertise. So you are our customers, the people who are producing. So what we want, you can only so often show a disc like the one that Sheila showed. People will lose interest after a while. The emotions, the storytelling, it comes through jewelry. So what we do is we advertise the jewels that people are making, because those are the main contributing factor to Osmium growing its popularity. So we do that via various channels. We have a quite successful YouTube channel. We have Instagram channel. We just now launched the Oslery online shop, which is Osmium Jewelry, which is a shop where people can list their Osmium jewels. And it's taking a 25% margin of these jewels just to run the shop. I mean, that's very cheap if you look at retail. It's important, though, that we are not the main source of selling the jewels. That's still on you. But it means it gives you also an international audience. We cover exhibitions from Japan all the way to Brazil. We work with K-pop stars, with ATP tennis players. We had the main dancer at the Rio de Janeiro Carnival last year wear an Osmium collier. It got a lot of media attention. So if someone's looking for spreading their jewelry also beyond the borders, for example, of India, this is an interesting thing to look at, because Osmium jewelry, wherever we go, it's always covered. We have a lot of people from press, from social media approaching us, most of the time not even for editorials, for advertisement, but just because they are interested. It's something new. We show the pieces, we explain who made them, and sometimes we also take orders, of course, but it's not our main job. But it means your pieces may be in Tokyo, maybe in Rio de Janeiro, maybe in Germany. You get the drill. So this is part of the team. We're a huge team. We already have over 1,200 partners worldwide who are working with Osmium. In the Osmium Institute Germany's headquarters, we are 23 people. We do have a local country partner, Kushal. Kushal, would you stand up real quick? To not make it awkward, could you give him a round of applause real quick? There we go. Now it's even more awkward. And we have other people here, Paras and Sheila and Devan. They are here in Mumbai area. Kushal is in Surat. So we have lots of people who are also now in India as local representatives who can show you something. And I would invite you all to follow us on Instagram to get the latest updates. We are on a lot of the exhibitions. If you also travel outside of India to Hong Kong, to Japan, to wherever, check out if Osmium's somewhere on the menu, either with a presentation or with a booth. We will most likely be back in August with an exhibition, with the exhibition, and we'll having a booth there, so we'll be able to present more pieces. Everyone who's interested, I would invite after the FAQ to come forward and have a look at the jewelry pieces that we have on display. And that's it. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm very happy to take any questions you guys may have, if there are any. There we go. Do we have like a... Oh, perfect.
Hi, Scarlett. Amazing presentation and a lot of knowledge that you shared with us. As you mentioned that there's a limited supply of the osmium, are there any chances that this can get exhausted, and what after that?
Very good question. So yes, it's very likely that osmium sources will get depleted rather sooner than later. We're talking of these 500 kilograms or less that we in general think are available out there. And on that market, not just the crystallization is grabbing, but also now potentially the industry, if that proves to be real with the quantum computing chips, which I mentioned earlier. So a lot of people are putting their attention on this crystallized metal. You still need only fractions of a gram to create a jewel out of it, but it's definitely going to be a material that not everyone can get their hands on. It's a little bit of first come, first serve. When we started with the business, there was also the idea to only have it in the super elite, high-end luxury jewelry and not open it to the public. Would have also been a marketing approach. We decided against that. So everyone is allowed to purchase it and use it for their jewels, but at some point it will run out. And when that is really hard to tell. It depends on how much we're trending. And now with big markets like India, also we were in Hong Kong, now China entering the market, it may be sooner than later, but yeah, we'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You kind of educated everyone with almost everything, sir. Great job.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Okay, but then I have something special coming your way. Shanu, can you please step forward to do the honors? I think you've known the team.
Yes. Oh.
And no one better
We just
than
had
her.
a lovely interview.
Yeah, no one better than her, because this comes as a token of appreciation from GJPC, thanking our speakers for giving us their time, and of course a little appreciation from us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the
Thank you so much.